Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision podcast. I know what you're thinking. This isn't Monday. There must be a glitch in the feed. I promise you there's no mistake. We're back with a special end of the week UD podcast. It's not going to be your average sports show, though. We're not going to come here and talk about sports issue of the day, because what we're doing now is kind of a pilot program. I've heard from the listeners. I've heard from some of our fans. They like pro wrestling. I like pro wrestling. So before all the big 4 pay-per-views for WWE, I'm going to try to have a big pro wrestling podcast, and that's what we've done today. Before we get into that, let's handle some business. If you're listening to the show, good on you for finding it. Now that you found it, make sure you subscribe. Use your go to the iTunes store, go to anywhere you find your podcast, hit subscribe. Make sure that when bonus episodes like this come up, you don't miss them. While you're subscribing, go ahead and leave a 5-star review in the iTunes store. Anything that's said in the 5-star review will be read on the air. If you've already left a 5-star review and you still want to reach out to the show, tell me what I'm doing right, wrong, somebody wants to hear, maybe you just want to give some feedback, you can email us at udpodcast@gmail.com. We're, of course, brought to you by the MTR Network. Follow us on Twitter at the MTR Network. It's entertainment news, movies, TV, video games, podcasts, sports, and now, by God, pro wrestling. We're brought to you, of course, by our wonderful sponsor, Tweaked Audio. Go there, get your headphones, listen to us as clear as day. And, we all break headphones. I've broken the ones I'm wearing twice. When you break your headphones, just use your 100% guaranteed replacement lifetime guarantee from Tweaked Audio. Make sure you use 30 reviews as you're checking out for 33% off in the store. I think I covered all my bases on things I have to talk about. Now let's talk about things I want to talk about, and a guest I want to introduce. My man Rich is from, I want to make sure I get everything on here because you do a lot of stuff. He is on Twitter at r.deuce. He is the co-editor-in-chief at Buffalo Wins, a great Buffalo site with whom I helped them out and let them know about their new incoming kicker. Hope that's working out for him. He's also recently, and this is great, PWTorch's at PWTorch on Twitter, East Coast Cast co-host. You can follow their show at East Coast Cast. His co-hosts are Travis Bryant and Cameron Hawkins. I got Rich Fann. What's up, man?
Not much, man. Not much. Really excited to talk about some wrestling, get you fired up, and give all the credit to Triple H and none to Vince. And
we'll
just enjoy it, man.
We'll get to the build of the whole thing in a second. I went from being super lukewarm about this weekend, because I'm one of those people who says Survivor Series maybe has run its course. That maybe as you're talking about the big 4 pay-per-views, I don't know if it's still in that place. They've proven me wrong with not only the news that was announced today, but the way they've treated this weekend. And let's get into it right now. Before we get into it, I know people are listening. People who are just big sports fans say, I trust T. Paul. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to hear him out. Why does he like fake athletics? Because and Rich, you've been a fan for a while. You've heard that a lot. Did you know it's fake?
Dude, I still hear it from my dad when I go to visit.
I want to just break something to everyone. We all know it's fake. I'm also going to break something to you. You may be joining us from Super Tuesday podcasts. I do hate to announce Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and The Flash also fake.
No, stop it.
I know it feels like Barry screwed up the timeline these days, but it's true. Those are fictional stories. And those are fictional stories that are written and rewritten and product tested and shot over the course of a week and with effects added and edits, and it's wonderfully done. This is a fake story that's told through pure athleticism, live, with no edits, no special effects, and a limited amount of time to connect to the audience. And I'll tell you what, it's the only art form that I can think of that your reaction to it will change the art. You don't like someone they're pushing, don't buy their merch, that person will go away. I guarantee it. If we boo, they react. If we cheer, they react. They have a test audience every night of the week because they're always on the road. They adjust the product to what you want to see. And as a Georgia football fan, I've got to say, I really appreciate someone wanting me to leave your event happy. After the Falcons did what they did against the Eagles on Sunday and Georgia's miraculous, I don't know how it happened against Auburn, between those two things, I need a little guarantee in life. And I tell you what, Rich, I don't know what's going to happen Sunday and Saturday, but I guarantee I'm walking away excited and with a smile on my face. Before we get too far into product, I do want to talk about your latest piece that's up for Buffalo Wins right now. I don't want to lead you at all in any way. Tell the audience what that piece is about.
Sure. Well, obviously, I've talked to you, I've talked to others online, and I've been dealing with our fans with the issue of the election. And for me, Tuesday night of last week was kind of like a punch in the gut, as it has been to a lot of folks of color, a lot of the LGBTQIA community, Muslims, everyone that basically wasn't a straight cis white male.
Right.
Really, that was a rough night, and I really had been feeling it, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue my fandom in the NFL. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue my fandom in the Bills. I wasn't sure how I was going to react, and mainly because, and this is kind of one of those, you start at the end and then you do the quick rewind. I really didn't want to find joy in something that would eventually lead to, well, your owner probably funded Trump, and, all that stuff just kind of came down on me at once, and it wasn't a good feeling. And that reminded me of my previous life before I worked in university and doing career consulting like I do now. I was an intern at the State Department in Moscow, and July was really a bad month for me in terms of 2005 because my grandmother died the same day. I was assaulted by a bunch of skinheads off a train, and long story short, the skinheads got beat up by skinheads who pretended to be skinheads to protect people of color, because in Russia, of course, that would make sense. And that was probably the lowest day I ever had until then. And I kind of crawled out of it and just said, you know what, I'm going to try to enjoy what I can. And as a couple of writers I really appreciate mentioned, joy is resistance. And so that kind of put me headlong into saying, hey, I enjoy wrestling, I enjoy football, I enjoy the Bills. I'm going to take what I can, because I got a 4-year-old and I got a wife. And, it was really just a story of me trying to be okay with the last week and letting people know from my side. So, a lot of times on Twitter, people start to say, well, look at the numbers, it's the middle class, it's the working class. And, I even had a neighbor tell me that, well, it's our turn now. It's like, well, you can talk that stuff, but I want to explain to you from my perspective, when I see a president that's appointing a white supremacist as one of his chief minds, when I see a president that has had no checks whatsoever other than federal mandate to curtail his racist behavior in business and in his personal life, become president-elect after the president we had for the last 8 years, that was really, I don't know about you, but that was really a bad thing to have to experience.
Yeah, it was a bad feeling, and I think you really captured a lot of the feelings of people, particularly sports fans, particularly dedicated sports fans. I got to ask, how was the fan reception to that?
It was by far, which floored me. I talked with my co-editor-in-chief, Joe. This was the most positive reaction I've ever received from any article in the 2 years I've written, and in the almost 8 months I've been editor-in-chief. Nothing but positive reaction, nothing but love, nothing. Even a buddy of mine who lives in Buffalo, who is a Republican, full MAGA, wrote me a message saying how much he loved me and how much he got after reading that. He finally got what I was talking about. And that's really my goal. I will argue with a troll and I will shut him down if I have to. But really, at the end of the day, I want people to understand this isn't just like I'm sure you and Chris mentioned at some point, but this isn't just like Megyn Kelly. When she had the information about what happened with her with Trump and she saved it for the book, that helps no one except for your wallet. I don't care about my wallet. I'm doing this stuff for free. I just want people to understand this isn't me being a pundit on Twitter and just being mad online. I'm mad online because I'm mad offline. And here's why. And I want that understood so that you don't see me as just the angry black man when you tell me I should capitulate and volunteer to work with a racist, or Bernie would have won, or any of that other silliness. And that's, again, going back to comic books. You show me the Earth 3 or Earth 57 where Bernie Sanders won the nomination and you got a Jewish socialist elected president in this current climate, and I will give you the shirt off my back and my house deed.
Well, I appreciate you writing it. You're a better man than me, because I'm not at the want to be understood phase yet. I'm still at the fuck everybody phase. So anyway, on to more pleasant things. Before we get into breaking down the big weekend we have ahead of us, I did mention in the open that I didn't consider Survivor Series a Big Four pay-per-view anymore. I actually considered Money in the Bank. I thought that more things had come recently out of Money in the Bank that affected the product more than Survivor Series. WWE says that I'm wrong as hell, and they've got their money behind it. They're rolling out a brand new business model around the Big Four: Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania, where beginning with April next year with WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, the organization will be taking all 4 of their big franchises and taking over your city for 4 days of shows. NXT show will run on Saturday. They've actually moved the Hall of Fame back to Friday so that they can do this in WrestleMania. The NXT main show will be on the Saturdays. The main show will be at WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, whatever, will be on that Sunday. And Monday and Tuesday will host Raw and SmackDown. They're trying to do it all in 1 or 2 venues to cut down the cost of having to break down and rebuild sets. That way they can maximize their dollar. They're selling now travel packages with WrestleMania, I've seen, where it includes 3 nights of stay, all the tickets, and hotel and flights and everything. It's a really smart move by WWE. Do you think this is going to be something that's going to kind of redefine how people view these big events? Because for me, and I've been to one Mania, and I saw the guys who say, we're at every Mania, we always, in the Raw after Mania, Smarkamania, as it's become known, is rowdy because of these smart crowds who come in. Do you think this is viable enough to put this kind of package behind it, or are they really appealing to the small minority who's going to say, I want to see 4 nights of wrestling? Because, Rich, I got to be honest with you, that's a lot of product.
Yeah. I mean, I went last year, and going to Texas and I'm going to Dallas. Yeah, going to Dallas, and I went to NXT, WrestleMania, and Raw. And by the time I got on the plane Tuesday morning to come back to Pittsburgh, I was drained. And I'm going to Orlando this year, and that kind of ties into my article, I'm not going to buy a ticket to WrestleMania, and that'll be my protest of Vince paying $2 million to Trump for his campaign. Instead, I'm going to all the other events around it, and then WrestleMania night, I'll watch it with friends in the hotel, and then see my parents who live in a little bit closer to Tampa than Orlando. But I think for the super fan, for the super mark, that this is going to be a great thing because you don't have to move. You don't have to worry about changing hotel rooms, or like I do, I usually wind up getting one of the cheaper, not necessarily motels, but I'll go with, my brain's escaping me for the word. I'll get one of the third-party houses and like rent out that spot for like 3 days with a couple of buddies, and you're paying like $50 a person. So if you have that opportunity, I think it's great. Personally, I'm selfish. I would have preferred if they kept NXT TakeOver on Friday, because I'm going specifically to Orlando because Progress Wrestling, based out of the UK, is going to be there, and they're having a show on Saturday night, so I can't go to NXT because I'll be there.
That was one of the questions I did want to ask, because if they're appealing to the super smart, if I go to Mania, I want to catch Evolve. I want to catch ROH. I want to catch Lucha doing their stuff. Lucha Underground came to Texas last year. I want to catch these other shows. Like if there's going to be a PWG show, like if you're going to appeal to the smarts, I think this is a very thin slice of their market. Mm-hmm. Of someone who can say, yes, please feed me 14 hours of wrestling. But at the same time, I only want WWE branded wrestling.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing. Because last year, it was really funny because when I went to Evolve, they set it up so that the wrestlers that had to wrestle at NXT TakeOver got an earlier match and had to haul to the other side of not even other side of town, it was across the street.
Right.
To get to the convention center. But in the years past, they had to go from one end of, I think it was California the year before, to the other. And that led to some travel issues. Like they had to save their match for the last match of the evening for Evolve. And, Gabe Sapolsky is going to be fine with it because his guys were just on NXT, and now they're going to be main eventing his show. But I think logistically, you're right. It's going to be tough. I'm really disappointed because that means to me a lot of the Evolve wrestlers that are going to be wrestling that night versus Progress Wrestling won't have a shot at even a dark match for NXT. Yeah. And I guess with the relationship, it's not a big deal, but for me, that would be a nice feather in your cap going into 2018.
100%. I think especially, I had a couple of friends who went to the Evolve show last year and said that by the main event, it was half empty.
Yes.
Because people had just been like, I got this NXT ticket. And of course, the NXT show throws on, I think it was they open with Revival American Alpha, and you're like, well, that's a top 5 match for me this year. I could watch that match right now and talk about it for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant match. But it's I think it's gonna be interesting to see who really takes advantage of those packages. They announced, of course, that the WrestleMania packages are sold out, but it's also pro wrestling, which is a very large carny atmosphere. So who really knows how sold out it was? Before we get to the breakdown of the weekend, I gotta ask. I should have done this earlier, and I apologize. How did you become a pro wrestling fan? What's your lineage into pro wrestling?
Well, I was firmly growing up. I grew up in Brooklyn and then moved to the Poconos when I was in high school, and then from there came here to Pitt for college and then bounced around. But pro wrestling, because I was in New York, we were all about Titan. So I would watch all of the nationalized syndicated shows because we didn't have cable. And so I would get between that Coliseum videotapes from the video store. I know for some of the listeners, video stores, what are those? Trust me, they were great places before Redbox where you could go and get stuff and watch it. Crazy thought, I know. And so we'd do that. And that also introduced me to WCW because I didn't have cable, so I didn't know about TBS or the mothership until we would rent the best of, Halloween Havoc or the best of Fall Brawl and figure out who this Sting guy was and why he looks like the Ultimate Warrior and all that fun stuff. And so I got sucked in by a lot of the characters of the WWE, well, WWF at the time. And then when I went to high school, during the Monday Night Wars, I had one of the best neighbors in the world because he would tape the first hour of Nitro, the 2 hours of Raw, and then in the 2-hour era, he would tape the replay of the second hour of Nitro, and then it was the 3-hour era, he would tape the replay of the second and third hour. So I'd have this sandwich of wrestling I could watch on Tuesdays and then catch up with everyone by Wednesday.
I hear you. What's your favorite era historically? What's the era you kind of can't? When people say pro wrestling, what's the era your mind goes to immediately?
Immediately it goes to Jake the Snake talking about burying the $1 Million Man under his own avarice. Because I remember that
very specific memory.
I remember that because I was like, wait a minute, I know this word, Jake. That's right. And so,
pro wrestling's been improving vocabulary for years.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, so I'm an Atlanta guy, man. I grew up in WCW country. My favorite wrestler of all time I'm a Sting mark forever. It's just who I am as a person. I'm okay with that. I've accepted it. I didn't really get in WWF, whichever, because for me it was about Ric Flair. It was about the Steiners, man. It was I don't know. I thought that WCW brought a more air of legitimacy to it.
Yeah. Because
there wasn't like, this guy's a barber and possibly also a male stripper. It's a little ambiguous gimmick. It was like, I'm Vader. I'm gonna burst Sting's kidney in the middle of this match. We're gonna finish it, which 100% happened, which is ridiculous. I Cactus Jack, like War Games, like I get into way too many conversations on Twitter about War Games and why Vince will never do it, but why it's one of the best events that most people have no idea existed.
Especially nowadays with the athletes. If you had the athletes of today in War Games.
You give me Seth Rollins and like a Neville across 3 rings under a giant cage? Come on, man.
The tears would just be falling down.
Oh, I'm getting sad thinking about it right now. But for me, I came of age in the NWO era. Like one of my first clearest pro wrestling memories is watching Sting on Saturday morning, but next to that is the day Hulk Hogan turned heel.
Yeah.
And as a Sting mark, I that's me, man. That's my year. Like people would say, "Oh, who's your favorite wrestler?" I would say Sting. Like, he doesn't even wrestle. I'm like, you're right, and he's still my favorite. That tells you how good he is at what he does. The last promo he gave before he went silent, when he turned his back to hard camera and just like, I'm a free agent and WCW didn't trust me. My friends are betraying me. It's such, and he's not known for his promo work. But that promo with the subtlety of turning back to hard camera, I loved it. And I don't know, I can still watch old WCW tapes because for me, I don't like the WWE current style of the 1,000 jump cuts.
Yeah.
I like the long establishing hard camera shots. Like I can watch a deleted versus Booker T best of 7 match right now and just be in awe of the artistry of it. and it doesn't take all the cuts or the jarring stuff or the reality TV cuts, as I call them, to make me interested. Well, thanks for giving me a background on some pro wrestling here. Let's get into what's happening this weekend. So, as I said, WWE comes to town now. They take over your city for a stretch of time. The opening event, if you will, Saturday this Saturday, NXT TakeOver Toronto, the first takeover happening in Canada. Injuries have kind of changed this card around, but I think we still end up with a pretty good one. Let's start first with the bottom of the card. Revival versus Team DIY, a tag team name I hate, but two wrestlers I love. 2 out of 3 falls for the NXT tag team titles. They put on, for my money, the best show of SummerSlam weekend in that tag match. And giving them 2 out of 3 falls just feels like the natural progression, and I'm literally just on the edge of my seat on what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah, I have gone from, because when they came here to Pittsburgh and I saw the Revival, they were going up at the time against American Alpha, and everyone would chant, which one's Dash, which one's Dog.
It's a great chant.
And you fast forward, and my God, they are the NWA reincarnated, and it's glorious.
They're the brain busters. It's all they're Arn and Tully. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's like I feel bad because I know, especially since they're based in Orlando, Tessa Blanchard is with Ricochet. At some point, Tully has to look at their matches, and he's like, "Am I in the ring?" Like,
well, whenever they get called up, I hope they end up on Raw because that means that Arn will be helping produce their matches. And I think Arn Anderson producing these 2 guys, and because they're already on a whole nother level of psychology, they bring the best out of everyone in the ring with. And I think that the 2 guys, Gargano and Ciampa, are 2 of the best in the world who are finally getting that shot that a lot of people never thought they would.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this has a chance to steal the weekend.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think this match, because I've talked with friends and I'm a big fan of how much trust Vince puts in Triple H. And a lot of fans, like on the East Coast Cast, they'll call and complain about, man, I hate the WWE style. And the first thing I tell a caller is, if you look around the entire landscape, the only place that truly runs the WWE style in the ring is Raw and the joint pay-per-views. If you look at SmackDown, more or less, and NXT, you're going to have in this tag match the best of new school indie wrestling versus old school 80s psychology. Mm-hmm. You can't complain about that. That's working the mercury. This is like alchemy in wrestling format. So I'm looking forward to it. Just like, some of the other matches on the card where you're getting styles that you never thought you'd ever see, and you have to figure out how this is going to work and how much you're going to love it.
Who do you see going over in this match?
I think it's going to be Dash and Dawson because they want to continue building that they won't Gargano and Ciampa as far as, the injuries and can we trust each other. And I hope it isn't something where they turn on each other and it's just a matter of, man, we just didn't get it this time. But I really see it as the Revival's on top and there's no one knocking them off yet.
Yeah, I think sadly, and for me, not sadly, I think you're right. I just kind of want to say, I think Dash and Dawson, they're in that weird place where Finn and Sammy were at a certain point.
Yeah.
Where I think they've done it. Like if NXT were a game, like you won NXT. If this is the game show days, you won. Congratulations. There's nothing more you can do here. But I also think that, and we saw some of this with kind of the injuries and the haphazardness of this year's Dusty Classic.
Yeah.
The tag division's so thin right now, and it's getting better. Sanity's coming up. You're going to see these teams. I think the Cruisers are going to work both 205 Live and NXT stuff. I hope they keep together Generation Next when Austin comes back. So I think that there's going to be space for more tag teams, but I think that the steady hand of the Revival on top of the division would be good. But you know what's actually better than being the only 2-time tag champs ever? The only 3-time tag champs ever. I think that we're going to see a lot of fan service this weekend, and I think Team DIY goes over. And I think that you're right, though. The Ciampa, that feud that we've been waiting on, wouldn't it be a lot more fun of a feud if they were tag champs?
This is true.
Or if Ciampa turns on them and costs them the titles of the next takeover, I think you're right. I think that's going to be our slow build, and I think that's going to be one of the headline feuds, honestly, of 205 Live that you could really do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that putting a belt on each of them would also add to it and maybe re-establish the greatness of the Revival. Next bout on the card is the end of the aforementioned Dusty Classic. The Authors of Pain, Rezar and Akam versus TM61, TMDK, if you know him like I know him. I didn't care because we've seen this match like 4 or 5 times. And while the Authors of Pain, I think, are a little green in the ring, they've got that presence. And TM61, I don't know what it is if they're not letting them do what they need to do to get over, or if they're still adjusting to having to work to Heart Camera as often.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't connected with the fans yet. And so I was lukewarm in this match until William Regal put Paul Ellering in a cage.
Yes.
And hung him above the ring. I'm so in on this match now.
Well, it's funny because it's the perfect symbolism, or again, old school, new school. For the people who don't know, seeing the Authors of Pain in TM61, you are seeing, Paul Ellering, last Battle of Atlanta, 2016.
I was talking about that the other day. I was trying to explain to someone the benefits of the network, and I was like, there's a tape called The Last Battle of Atlanta that no one saw for like 40 years. And I just watched it because I felt like it. And this is that. This is the last battle of Toronto.
Right. I mean, that's the thing about this. I mean, I know people will have their complaints about WWE. They are not perfect by any means. But, I was listening to The Observer, and they don't want you to cancel. The WWE is so adamant about you not canceling. When you try to cancel, they're like, hey, we'll give you a free month. Just see what we're about to do, and you're going to want to pay for January. And I'm like, well, shoot, man. Like, these guys are all in on this weekend, and it's going to start with these guys showing off. Hey, this is the last Battle of Atlanta Redux. You might want to see that on the network. See where history happens and see how we remake it and make our own history. And I got to respect them for it. And to your point with TM61, I think the biggest issue is when you come to NXT, when you come to the WWE, you have to have not only the skill, but you also have to develop that character. And I think they were trying to make Shane become more of a weirdo, like goof, and that's not him. They were really just in Noah and New Japan, arrogant Australians who could kick your head off. And you can't really do that in NXT because you have an arrogant Japanese dude, you got an arrogant American dude, you got so many people that already have that locked down.
Right.
You got to make it work somewhere else.
I think it's interesting that they're trying to work on baby, like this baby, like just pure white meat baby. And we'll see how it works. I've got the Authors of Pain going over here because we know Paul's not staying in that cage.
Right. I'm with you there completely.
Next match at the card, Tye Dillinger, who I don't know what happened. I woke up one day and he was the most over person in the world. Tye Dillinger, Mr. The Perfect 10, taking on the glorious one, Bobby Roode, who could come out as, in his own words, he could take a shit in the ring and still be over because of the song.
Yep.
Two Canadian guys who grew up in the shadows of the big arenas in Toronto. This is their homecoming. This is going to be a great spot. I see Roode going over because I think he's going to be the next big heel for the promotion. So I think Joe's coming up. We're going to talk about that when we get to Survivor Series. I think Joe makes his appearance felt more than one night this weekend, and I think Bobby Roode goes over because I think Tye Dillinger is getting called up too.
Yeah, I think Tye is going to be one of those guys who will get his reward on the main roster and not in NXT, which isn't a bad thing at all. I was talking on the East Coast Cast yesterday about the fact that he is sneakily a 10-year WWE vet.
It's so weird because I didn't realize that until someone pointed out. It was like, oh yeah, he's been developmental for literally. He and Jason Jordan were down there at the same time, and Jason Jordan was there forever. When Seth was coming back, who did they send to work with? They sent him to Tye. They were both at FCW together. Like this, he's a great hand in the ring. He's finally found a character that connects. Good for him.
Well, shoot, Palm, he was in OVW.
Yeah, like this guy. Like did he leave and come back?
Yeah, he left for 3 years and came back after he had been enhancement talent for ECW.
Like, if there's one guy who I know has paid his dues, who I know loves this company and wants to be in this company, we can talk about what that means in a whole other conversation because pro wrestling versus this company. Tye Dillinger's Oda's just desserts. I would like to see him go out on his back. I would like them to give him the send-off that they gave to Sammy when he went in on his back in Dallas. I like to see the send-off they gave to Bayley in Brooklyn. He never got close to the title, but man, he made a statement in NXT, especially these last, call it 6 to 8 months when they kind of floundered for babyfaces. He stepped up in a big way. He's moving merch for them. I think he's going to make them a lot of money on the main roster as long as they give the time for the character to get over.
Yeah. I think they got to put him on SmackDown.
Yeah. I don't want, and the thing, we'll talk about that in a second too, but I don't want him to get lost in that Raw shuffle that I think is about to happen. Yep. And Bobby Roode is just a damn gem. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not a TNA guy, so I have very little Bobby Roode exposure. The guy, he's Triple H.
Yeah, I call him Mini H because
he's Little H. Yeah.
He is, and it's funny to me because I went on this rant a couple of months ago because Bruce Mitchell and I were talking about the fact that they had the Cowboy James Storm first.
Did you just name drop Bruce Mitchell on me?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
Just checking.
I had to.
Nice drop.
Bruce, I love you. Duke's going down on Saturday. Deal with it.
Wow.
But he was talking about how, the difference between Bobby and Cowboy James Storm when they both went to NXT, in my opinion, which was a little bit angrier than it should have been, and it was because my dirty little secret is I don't watch a lot of TNA, but three things
no
I
one does.
Yeah, I enjoyed Joker Sting because he went for it.
I know he went for it, but he shouldn't have.
But that's why I appreciate him because he didn't have to do that.
He's the biggest company man alive.
Yes, and I had an unnatural enjoyment of Beer Money Inc. solely because of the juxtaposition of a Wall Street broker and a drunk guy who just likes beer. And so I wanted them to make Cerveza LLC in NXT, and Mr. Storm decided to take the money and run from Dixie. So when Bobby came, he's my dude now. I will ride with Mini H or Little H because you got Little H and then you got Little H.
And that's who he is. I love his ring psychology. I want to get a better finisher because he's literally. I saw someone said he's a COD, he's literally has a COD finisher. Just a creator wrestler on 2K17, just that. Oh yeah, the pump handle slam. Come on, buddy, we need a better finisher. I think he's used the pedigree in the past. He's used Cooper Crossface. A lot of guys use those as transition spots now, so it's tough to see. I think they're going to figure it out, and that if they don't call it the Glorious Bomb, they've missed all the points of everything that's happening. Second to last match in the card, Asuka's taking on Mickie James. Dirty little secret of mine, I didn't watch any professional wrestling. I was in the Omni for Finger Poke of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hard camera side 4 rows back. Wow. That was the day I said never again. And I walked away from pro wrestling in 9th grade and I said, I'm done. And I was out until I moved to Philadelphia and I caught the tail end of the Summer of Punk.
That'll do it.
And I was like, well, I guess I'm back in. And so you think about it, my first Mania coming back, because I went to the Mania in Atlanta on a lark for the free ticket. And I was like, oh, this is great. I do miss kind of pro wrestling. And then I caught Summer of Punk and in and out. But when I was in Philadelphia, I got caught into the Bryan story really heavily. So 30 was my first invested Mania ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, and then the network, and my fiance would say it's been a slippery slope. I say it's been a expensive slope. But it's been fun. It's been great to get back into it. So Mickie James is mostly an unknown quantity for me. Can you sell? First of all, Austin's going over. We all know that.
Yeah.
That's not a question. Can you sell me this match?
Yes. Mickie James, in the era of divas, where it was more important for you to sell Playboy issues than it was for you to work in the ring, was the perfect combination of a beautiful woman that also could help Vince get his, let's say, his more of his fantasies out on screen than many people were comfortable with, I guess, in today's climate. But she started as the alleged lesbian stalker of Trish Stratus. And that culminated in their WrestleMania match, in which she caressed herself, made out with Trish, and then hit her finisher for the win. And so Mickie, because she's evolved from that to an accomplished wrestler, she started as a second in ECW, moved into WWE, then transitioned when, Vince decided, all the ladies, quote unquote, were getting old, well, okay, that was my official story. The reason she left WWE for TNA was because there was a certain gentleman who has an enjoyment for hustle, loyalty, and respect that didn't necessarily respect his marriage at the time, and that led to her having to be getting gone. So after her and Mr. Cena stopped their relationship, that led to her departing for TNA. And he's an individual person. If you look the way you like, he's fine. If you don't, he will make you pay for it on TV. And so her send-off was The Undertaker's wife and her tag team partner calling her Piggy James and basically squashing her for like a month. Oh. And so fast forward to TNA, she became hardcore country, so she's a singer on the side. She's a really good wrestler. And that ended in an awkward storyline in which Bobby Roode pushed her off a train track and allegedly in front of an oncoming train. But when they realized that was a little too crazy even for TNA, they explained she got out of the way just in time.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So, all right. So all that knowing all that now, knowing I didn't miss much as far as the advancement of women wrestling in the last 11 years, I have to ask, can she keep up with Asuka?
She can. She can, and Asuka is... The best thing about Asuka to me is no one has seen her in yet no one's seen her final form because she is essentially the one-punch man, psychopathic Japanese zombie, and spitting blood at you as she kicks you in the face. You really know you got Asuka. And I think that's the type of person that Mickey can pull out of her if they want to have her switch and become a heel, because now they have this overabundance of faces on the women's roster.
Right. All right, so the last match on Saturday is going to be the King of Swag style, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Samoa Joe. I think Nakamura's going over. They had a great match at Brooklyn. A great sell by Joe of the jaw. And I think that they've got a really good build here. I've been a little detached from it because, to be honest, I think NXT's in a bit of a transitional phase, so I've been watching the product as much. But all their segments I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed the pull-aparts. I've enjoyed the random Kinshasas of random security men. And I think Nakamura goes over here, but I think it's going to be another barn burner. What about you?
I agree. I think this is going to be another notch in the belt of the King, a strong style. And another match in which people see the greatness of Shinsuke Nakamura and the physicality, even in the later part of his career, Samoa Joe. And that kind of lends to what you were saying before. I really hope he transitions up because the physicality that Joe brings every single time he wrestles needs to be seen by a large audience. Otherwise, you're not going to give him the true, his just due, I guess.
All right, man. So, of the 5 matches on the card, which one are you most excited for, looking forward to on Saturday?
I would have to say number 1 is going to be that 2 out of 3 falls.
Dog, I'm so hyped. I'm so ready for this match.
I think the Revival, they are just so good. And again, name drop again. Bruce mentioned that there's so many people on the NXT roster that came from the Carolinas, from the independent promotion he visits often. The Revival, No Way Jose, and there was someone else, I can't remember the name right now. And you could tell how polished they were when they got to NXT and how it truly was a finishing school for them to hone those little things that they might have missed on the indies and made themselves into true, I'm not going to say sports entertainers. They're professional wrestlers.
Yeah, I think that's the match I'm looking forward most forward to as well. I think you're 100% right about being a finishing school. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how crowded the top of the card gets. Because you look at this takeover, it's kind of like Hideo's hurt, Austin Aries is hurt, Roderick Strong's not on it, No Way Jose's not on the card. Like, there's a lot of talent that we know about. No one from Sanity is nominally on the card. There's a lot of stuff on the roster right now that we're not seeing this weekend. That I think that we may be one of those push-up phases where people get called up and other people step up, and I'm really excited to see who steps up next. Let's go to the main show, Survivor Series, and let's just start at the top of the card, the bottom of the card. The Miz and Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. If Sami Zayn wins, the title will transfer to Raw, or will it? I think that they've done a very good job. See, I wasn't here for the first brand split, so when this was announced, a lot of the fans who I trust were very wary. So that when someone on SmackDown gets hot, they get transferred to Raw. I said, I don't think they'll do that. And so far I've been wrong. So far I've been right, but I think I'm about to be wrong. The Miz is doing the best heel work of his career. So he's 11 years in now, and I've done some network research. This is a guy who was made to dress in hallways.
Yep.
He was written off as the MTV Real World kid who's just here because they need the publicity, into one of the very best workers on the planet. People say, I don't like his in-ring stuff. If you're just judging a wrestler on in-ring stuff, you're not watching pro wrestling. He brings so much. Everything he does in that ring matters and feeds into his character to the point where I could see him dropping the strap to Zayn because of the way Stephanie treated him on Monday. Sami say, "Oh no, I'm going to Raw. I'm going to SmackDown and keeping the title there," and Miz goes to Raw because I think you need a secondary title on SmackDown. And we all know what's happening with the Cruiserweight belt when it goes over there, as we'll get to that next. But I think that I think Sami belongs on SmackDown, first of all. I think Miz can do great work on Mondays. And I think that Sami versus Dolph for that title is a best of 7 series I want to watch.
Yeah. It's one of those funny things. When I saw SmackDown and I saw that Miz had beaten Dolph and I watched the match, the first thing I thought was, Miz, as much as wrestling fans hate to admit it, is everything you wanted Dolph. And most of these internal WWE developmental guys to be. Seth Rollins, and when you look at Roman, when you look at any of these guys who've made Rusev, even to an extent, they've done something in the lab that very few people have pulled off successfully. So when I look at this match, I agree with you. I think Sami's going to win, but I'm going from the other side. Not necessarily just because of the Miz and Maurice and how well they do on Raw. I think this will be a continued example of how Mick Foley has failed Stephanie, because he will neglect to remember to re-sign the champion as Daniel had to when the Miz won it the first time.
That's a really good point, a really good wrinkle. I also think another wrinkle they could add is it's really interesting that they built Dolph up in so much over the last few weeks, months, and left him with the card. So I think that he could have a spot to play here as well. He's been kind of screwed over by Maurice in the past. I think the finish is going to be a not clean one, but I think you and I are both right. I think Sami Zayn is going to go over here. Another one where I think I know who's going over, Kalisto taking on the Brian Kendrick for the Cruiserweight title. Kalisto wins the title in Cruiserweight division, will transfer to SmackDown. Spoiler alert, they've announced that post-SmackDown, they'll be launching a Cruiserweight-based show called 205 Live. It'll be airing on the DW Network, which you can sign up for just $9.99 a day. So, I mean, it should be a good match.
Yeah.
We got a guy who brought us a sliced bread number 2 versus someone who uses Sleeve del Sol. I think that this was the kind of the question mark when they announced that the Cruiserweights would be on Raw. We were all like, wait, why isn't Kalisto with them? And this is kind of the last piece of the Cruiserweight puzzle. I think that having their own show will be helpful because you look at a guy like TJ Perkins who should be connecting with the audience. He's lived behind a mask, has never had to emote while he spoke. So when he speaks, he looks as a stone face. There's one, I think the only one who's got only 2 established characters right now who aren't named Brian Kendrick are Rich Swann and Cedric Alexander.
Right.
And I think that them having the room to breathe on 205 Live will help. I think that the move to the Blue Brand will help everyone. I think that it was very weird on Raw when they had the backstage segment where they're all dressing in a loading dock. That was weird. And I think it's just going to be a fun match that it's going to do what it needs to do, and that's give SmackDown its second big win of the night, setting up for some swerves later.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you on that. I think the biggest thing about the predictability of these first 2 matches is you have to, it's just logical. If anything, you're going to hurt your own roster by forcing them to be on Raw. You already know they're going to be on NXT for tapings and for some of the spot shows they do around the country. So it makes sense. Just put them on SmackDown. and they're good to go. I think Kalisto, again, like you said, it's hard to kind of, same things with TJ Perkins. With Kalisto, it's tough. I remember his post-draft promo live on the network where it was horrible. I felt so bad for him.
Right.
And I think if you give him that, like with the U.S. title, he was a lot more confident when he knows he has the wind to his back and he has the company saying, hey, you can be that guy.
Right.
Go be what Conan has sworn up and down you can be, and what he saw in you when he tried to bring you to AAA. So I'm really hoping that they tear the house down, and I'm hoping that whoever produces it with them has enough sense to let them be different. Because as we'll see in a few minutes, the Survivor Series matches are going to have a little bit of everything, but these guys should be able to do their thing unfettered, uninterrupted.
I think that you're 100% right, and I really hope that they give them the time to do what they need to do in the space, because there's only four matches on the card, but they all feel like they're going to go for a while. Next up is the 10-on-10 Survivor Series Tag Team Elimination Match, which is the funniest poster of all time, because I think there are 13 people on the poster. Or
Yep.
excuse me, no, not 13. I'm sorry, 22 or 21. Like, because there's 5 on each side, but then the New Day's got 3 members. And I think someone has a valet. It's kind of ridiculous. This is one of those matches I don't think really matters, but because that's another thing is that they haven't really added a lot of stakes to these Survivor Series. I know that we're building towards the meta story of McMahon versus McMahon and eventually Triple H versus Shane at WrestleMania. Spoilers if you don't know how booking works. But I think that this is another one where you get another SmackDown. What they're going to do here is establish who of this group is going to get the rocket strapped to their backs going forward as a team. And we'll just go through the teams right now. Team Raw will consist of the New Day, doesn't need to win. Sheamus and Cesaro doesn't need to win. Gallows and Anderson will probably end up getting disqualified because they're trying to build them as monster heels now after 3 months of comedy dreck, which I will not go too far into right now about my feelings. Enzo and Big Cass, they're over because of the catchphrase, and you can't get them unover. And the Shining Stars, who, come on guys, find a gimmick. Travel agent ain't your gimmick. I don't think there's anyone on the Raw side that needs this win or could really benefit from this win. You look at Team SmackDown, Slater and Rhino, they're the champs, and Slater is one of the better stories of pro wrestling in 2016.
Yes.
It's like they said, you know what? You're going to get more airtime than anyone else because you're going to be on both Raw and SmackDown. Go out there and get over. If you don't, maybe we'll future endeavor you. He got over. And more power to him. He doesn't need this win. The Hype Bros, Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley, I don't know what they're doing, but I don't think they need this win either. The Usos are in the midst of that heel turn, so them being mad and frustrated after this would be good. Breezango, I love them, but I don't know how the company feels. I don't know why they were dressed as cops on Tuesday. That was
they were fashion police.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, I choked on my lunch in my office.
Well, that's amazing. Well, what I'm leaning us up to is I think the team that wins this is going to be Team SmackDown. I think the team that needs this is American Alpha. If you look at every match they've been in a pay-per-view since they got called up to the main roster, it's been a multi-team tag match, and they've won it. So I think that bodes well for them booking-wise. I think they're doing a very slow build where you're going to see the Usos take the titles off of Slater and Rhino, and American Alpha is going to get that push either Rumble time or maybe Mania. They may save that for a Mania moment. How do you see this working out? Or do you, again, like I said, it's a 10-on-10 Survivor Series tag team elimination match. It doesn't really matter. But I think that American Alpha is probably the best money to get out of there.
Yeah. And for me, I'm looking at all 3 of them as an organic thing that Vince and the bookers are going to want to massage as far as supremacy. I don't think there's going to be a clean sweep, so I think this will be the match that SmackDown might pick up.
Right.
So I'm with you completely with American Alpha. I could see something like maybe Gallows and Anderson pulling out some cheap win.
Right.
Over
Super
American
easily.
Yeah. But I think for the most part, this is the stage where you have to show American Alpha after all these months are the team to beat on SmackDown.
100%. But you're right. I think that they won't make it a clean sweep on these on the cards. If you've noticed so far, we've tilted the event heavily in the side of SmackDown. This is where I think the Raw kind of comes in and dominates the rest of it, because I think that they're gonna use the women's elimination match, which Team Raw, Charlotte, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, she got her last name back. Bayley, Nia Jax, Alicia Fox, and Sasha Banks, with Dana Brooke, I guess, as mascot or coach, versus Team SmackDown, Nikki Bella, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, Carmella, and Naomi, with Natalya as their coach. I think Team Raw goes over big here. I think this is going to be a really good chance for them to set up that Bayley-Charlotte feud that they want so badly, and maybe move Sasha Banks into the program with Nia Jax, which I think would be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big time to show off Nia Jax, because I think they want her to be a monster.
Yeah, I think she can really be the Brock Lesnar of the women on Raw division, and I think it's important that you make that division look good right now, because I love Alicia Fox. She hasn't been an on-camera, on-television storyline focus in a very long while. Now I guess she's getting accidentally hit in the face by Nia Jax, which, hey, you made the team, that's fine. But if I look at the Team SmackDown, the roster is just being better used. And I think it's important to reestablish the Raw women as a force with the win here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing I took from Tuesday was it was a little weird to see Bayley do a horse.
Yeah, Bayley like throwing boots on people in a beatdown. Like, come on, man. Like, I get it. We're building to this feud, but let's maintain something here. It's the same way I felt about seeing Bray in a SmackDown shirt.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me.
And Naomi, I mean, I know the code word for the black person on the squad is the most athletic, but she really is the
I'm about
most
to say, like, it's not wrong.
But when I watched that little Pier 6 brawl they did, and she no-hand springboards to the top rope, balances herself until the ladies were ready to catch her, and then jumps onto them, that was, to me, I felt like I was in, I had an out-of-body experience, and I was watching Rob Van Dam in ECW in, like, 97, 98.
Well, do you agree that Raw goes over here, you think?
Absolutely. I think they go over big. I think Nia Jax is going to be like a Survivor Series 95 where they had Asia Kong just going through, just smashing dudes, and Bayley kind of like winds up accidentally pissing her off and getting choke slammed or something, and Charlotte just kind of comes in to clean up after. And my biggest question going in was, why is Natalya in, of all places, Canada, a coach and not a wrestler in this match?
You are 100% right. If I'm in Canada and I've got a heart, I'm putting them on the card. Call it cheap heat, call it cheap pops, but it seems like easy booking to me. The next to last match, Team Raw. Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, drink it in, man. Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, and Seth Rollins versus Team SmackDown. I'm not saying this ridiculous catchphrase. AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton, and for some unknown reason, Shane McMahon with James Ellsworth, the no chin music as the mascot. I think this is a really good chance for the company to establish. Kevin Owens has to pin AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Because I don't care, you can call it the Universal Galactical Transdimensional Belt if you want. The WWE title is what matters to me as a viewer, as a fan. You're telling me that your bright red cinnamon belt,
fruit roll up,
your fruit roll up belt is supposed to be the top title. You've got to show it to me. Since he's won the belt, Kevin Owens, he's got 0 clean wins and title defenses, I think. He's been stuck in this semi-comedy, semi-serious place with Jericho, and I get it. I understand what time of year it is, and I understand what they're doing, and I'm not one of those fans. I am saying if you want me to respect your belt, give me a reason to. I think this is also a great way to lead into the Taker, because as we saw on Tuesday, he said he's back, which I presume he's doing more TVs, I guess, or doing TVs at all. He says he's going to be a SmackDown roster guy. He says that whoever costs us this match will have to deal with him physically. Now, if you're telling me that Kevin Owens pinning AJ Styles will get me AJ versus Taker, well then, let's pin the man.
Yeah, I'm here for it. A lot of people were saying it's going to be probably Randy Orton again, and here's my issue. And this isn't a wrestling thing. I'm going to fully take my wrestling fan hat off.
Take it off.
Randall Kennedy, AWOL, All Lives Matter Orton is dead to me. So I don't want to see him in any position. Like, he already, because of that Brock Lesnar match, and for those of you who haven't seen it, get the WWE Network, watch the main event of, was that SummerSlam?
It was SummerSlam.
Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, where he had the holy crap beat out of him, and he was concussed severely, and that gives him the golden ticket because WWE can never fire him because he took one for the team. So that kind of allowed him to feel himself, and on Twitter he decided to say some things that were not too kind to the Black Lives Matter movement, and that kind of settled Randy with me real quick. So I'm all in. I want to see AJ Styles. He's the best wrestler to me in the world. Seeing him with The Undertaker, that is just... Every single time I watch AJ wrestle in the WWE, I have to pinch myself because I'm like, this is a creator wrestler, right? I just download this.
Well, one of the things about Mr. Orton, and I don't think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's not going to be an Orton Taker program, partially because Orton's leaving because he's having a kid.
Yeah.
I think they're not doing Bray because they just did it. They're not doing Dean because why? Yeah, why? And they're not doing Shane because they made a very big stink of him tipping his cat to Shane. I think that Raw has to go over. I think that Braun Strowman can either decide if he's going to be someone they can build around or is going to be a great Khali. Not talent-wise, I think he's actually pretty good in the ring.
Yeah.
I just think that if he can maintain that mystique, like Rusev kind of floundered once they took away that winning streak. If you keep Braun with that aura of invincibility, you can really build something nicely there, and I think that that's something they protected well. Of course, there's CrossFit Jesus, Mr. Black Lives Matter.
I mean, and that's the listen, Paul. He is the flip side of that coin. When I saw that, I was like, "You're my dude for life. I don't care how many pics you slide in the DMs and people bust you on. I will ride with you through the mountains of Valhalla, and I will fight all you put in my way."
This is another time I remind everyone that Seth Rollins' real name is Colby Lopez, and he's a Hispanic man who grew up in Iowa. I think he might get it. So I think we both got Raw going over here. And that's the other thing is there's just no stakes. And I get what Taker's done. Taker injected stakes for SmackDown because he's setting up his next feud, and that's good and well. I won't know what to feel when Raw wins. Do I really give a shit yet? Like, I don't know. Maybe next year's brand split, I'll feel more strongly about it. But for me right now, this is important for Raw. The goal should be, let's put over this big red belt.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with you, and you're probably going to get mad at me.
Probably.
I don't think it's going to be Kevin. I think it's going to be Roman.
Oh, they're not. No one's that tone deaf. Okay. All right. Fair enough. They might be that tone deaf. But they also had Roman do the services for Finn on his first night.
Yeah, but here in Pittsburgh, we already have advertisements for December's pay-per-view, and the main event, supposedly what they're advertising to us, Kevin versus Roman.
Yeah, but that's fine. I'm saying that I don't think that Roman goes. I think Roman will be fine. Excuse me. I think this won't be a sole survivor situation.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that Kevin has to pin AJ Styles.
See, I'm thinking Roman steals the pin from Kevin, and that's what leads to Kevin being completely...
Yeah, but that would require them turning Roman, and they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then, because if you turn Roman there, then you've made Kevin a tweener, which he can live in that space, but he's better as a heel.
Yeah. And I think Jericho's going to be the only elimination from Raw.
I'm really excited for his reaction to getting eliminated. I hope he brings out a separate blue SmackDown list. WWE, I don't know if you're listening. The fact that I can't buy like just a notepad off of the WWE.com, it says list of Jericho, and I could be like, oh, I need to get groceries. Bananas, you just made the list. Like, I can't do that. What? Come on, you guys like money? And I know you like money because you gave us this match in the pay-per-view that I wasn't excited about. I didn't give a shit about this next match at all. I was actually ardently against this match even taking place. I said there would be no good build. Said no one would be able to talk besides Paul. I said that physically I don't think Goldberg could do it. And holy shit, I'm wrong, and I'm excited for this match because, little known fact, Goldberg's been like hosting television shows for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He can talk now.
It's great because he's real.
Yeah.
Before he was just a psychotic barking dog anytime they gave him a mic in WCW. And now he's learned to modulate his voice and kind of just emote. And he's a dad. Someone put up on Twitter, one of the guys I follow that do wrestling humor, he mentioned it was like a dad bod fight between Brock and Goldberg when they argued on Monday. And that's what it is. Like, Goldberg's just a dad who wants to prove to his kid, I used to be this superhero, and I got one more fight left in me. And God help him, because he jacked his shoulder up on Monday, so he's going into this match legit hurt.
Well, I don't think it's gonna be a barn burner. It's not gonna be a 5-star classic. It's not Kenny Omega versus versus anyone really, because Kenny Omega's great. But I think it's gonna be a fun little brawl. I think it's gonna be a lot of strikes, and they'll use a lot of the outside elements, if you will, to build some things around, to build some drama. I think we see a jackhammer. I think we see a kick out, and I think that there's no way you can have Brock not go over. I think you either say we've invested 4 years in this guy to make it the most unbeatable thing on the planet, and when eventually we do have him lose, it's got to be something that matters, or you say that this guy who you can't put the guy who's here for one date over Brock Lesnar.
Right.
You can't.
I think the only way you can do it is if you have someone appear and cost them the match.
So you listen to Jim Ross's podcast too?
Oh, of course.
Because that was the next thing I was going to say. I was like, there is a way to do this.
I was going to say the one thing, and this is where, sometimes Bruce Mitchell to me is how Dave Meltzer is to the Young Bucks. So sometimes I call him Uncle Bruce, and it just slips out. He's been a big proponent of Shane helping, do the banana peel, hold his leg down for the 3 count type deal. I am more inclined to think it's going to be someone like either the Samoan Submission Machine, Mr. Joe, or if there's another person they've signed or re-signed that we aren't aware of, just to add that shock factor, because we're getting into WrestleMania.
Say his name. Say his name.
No, I'll let you do it.
It's true. It's damn true.
And here's the thing, Palm. I can't say it out loud because I will just start weeping openly and saying my baby's
If you give me a 6-month Kurt Angle Brock Lesnar build, I'm here. Because this is when they set up Mania. Like, you think about it, 2 years ago, they set up Sting Triple H at Survivor Series. This past year, after Seth blew out his knee, they set up Roman Triple H for Mania at Survivor Series. An Angle will kick off on Sunday night. That will define what we see in April. And if it's Kurt Angle, I'd be really appreciative.
Here's my issue with that. Because in my head, this is almost like the person, if you ever saw the movie Misery, I've got all this fan fiction locked in my brain. You give me Kurt Angle for 6 months leading to Brock Lesnar, at some point running into American Alpha, at some point Sheldon Benjamin's going to be healthy enough from his surgery to come back.
New Team Angle.
Team Angle versus Team Angle. Winner keeps the legacy of Kurt Angle, and I just weep openly as I watch it happen. Vince can have all my money. Just take it all.
Look, man, I'm telling you, it's been a crazy year in professional wrestling. I've covered this a couple times on the show. 2016 has been nuts. And the fact that we can have an honest conversation, legitimately, like, maybe Kurt. Because Raw has Brock. If you make Kurt the part-timer that Brock is for SmackDown, and then let's say you build 2K18's marketing around Kurt.
Which is something that Dave Meltzer has alluded to several times.
I've heard worse ideas.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Do you see Lesnar going, barring shenanigans, do you see Lesnar going over?
Yeah, I see Lesnar going over, and I think to your point about timing, one of my favorite matches is a 10-minute fist fight, essentially, between Katsuyori Shibata and Tomohiro Ishii in the G1 Climax 2013. I think Meltzer gave it 5 stars, maybe 4.5. But it was 10 minutes of 2 dudes killing each other, and I show it to any pro wrestling fan to prove this is what it can be when you take the bells and whistles off, and it's just 2 dudes trying to prove they're superior over each other, and you still have a story. So I think with Brock and Goldberg, they have the story. I don't need to see 25 minutes. I don't need to see a Broadway. I just need to see whatever
Give me 12 to 15.
Yeah.
Give me 12 to 15, tell a good story, get Paul involved, go through a table, let's get out of here.
Right.
Everyone's got their knees intact, hopefully.
Right, yeah, Suplex City. And that's the one thing I'm worried about Bill with. Those are 2 big guys, so Brock is usually strong enough to do it, but I worry that Bill's reflexes aren't going to be there, and I just don't want to see what happened with Sting with Seth, happen with Goldberg with Brock.
I only worry about that too, but more than anything, I'm excited because if there's one thing that Brock does that's underrated, he'll sell the shit out for you.
Yes.
He'll sell for you, man. I remember he took a curb stomp from Seth Rollins on a Raw once that I think I stood and applauded involuntarily. I was like, that was the best sell I've ever seen. And I've seen Rob Van Dam take one where he somehow ends up on his back off of a curb stomp. It's amazing. He does a forward roll out of the bump, and it's just so good. And that's how Brock took it. Brock's in a feed for him. I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting how it goes, but level of professionalism in the ring and level of people who want to give us a good show, I think that'll be fine. I think you're right. The ring rust, the nerves, that's what I'm worried about on the Goldberg side. Worst comes to worst, Brock will just say, I'm about to suplex you for 20 minutes, and then we'll get out of here. And if that happens too, I'm also here for that. Rich, man, thank you so much for coming on, taking the time, getting this bonus podcast in with me. Will you tell everyone where to find you one more time?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. If you're just looking to talk to me, it could be RDOTDEUCE. If you're interested in Buffalo Bills football or interested in making fun of the Buffalo Bills, you can find us at Buffalo Wins, like the wings without the G. And if you're interested in pro wrestling and you like what me and Palm talked about, you can hit us up at the East Coast Cast at East Coast Cast, all one word. And if you have some extra money you want to throw Wade Keller's way at PWTorch, and you can join VIP where you can send emails to us and we'll answer them for you.
I'll tell you what, I don't pay for any pro wrestling content aside from the network. And you made me consider the Torch. Just having this conversation with you, tell Keller that just being on has been a great sales pitch. Again, guys, I'm D Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. This has been Unanimous Decision, very special edition. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. If you're talking about the show on social media, use the hashtag UDPod. We're brought to you by the MTR Network. Follow us on Twitter at the MTR Network. That was your show. This is your outro. See you on Monday.